Good morning, Stacking the Box fans far and wide. We are here to talk about the Who Gives a Shit Super Bowl. That's right. Who gives a shit? Rarely throwing out the profanity early in the show, but Benny Heiss is with us for the whole show today. Matt Verderam living the dream. What's up, Gonzo? What's up to you, Eddie E and Shrek Football weighing in early in the chat here. And yes, Gonzo, it is about damn time. We're half an hour late. Verderam, would you like to apologize to the Stack in the Box community? We are late because of you, buddy. I don't even know why we're late.
No, I'm not going to apologize at all. I had a job to. I had to interview a coach in the NFL, and the community has to understand. I'm sorry. It was one of those. If an NFL coach says, "Yeah, I'll talk to you," you do it when the NFL coach says they can. So it worked out.
Can you release who that coach is? Or is that private?
Yeah,
We have to wait.
no, I can. I talked to Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. I'm doing a story on how Sean McVay and Zach Taylor coached together in the last Super Bowl that McVay was in. Of course, Taylor was about to become the head coach of the Bengals. He was the offensive coordinator. And so I'm doing this feature based on the idea of how hard it's going to be or how weird it's going to be for some of these guys who coach with both of them, as Shane Waldron did in LA, to watch this game and how they're going to feel and if they have a certain thought on the game. So I've talked to a few coaches. I got a few more hopefully to go. But Shane was nice enough to give me his time on the record. And so, we had to push this thing back half hour.
Heiss, are you good? Do you understand? Are you okay?
I've been here living the dream, getting everybody and their mothers ready to bet the Super Bowl. So yeah, I'm just going to be here.
We're going to make some money in a second here. But all right, along your Verderam lines here as far as the coaching, two youngest coaches, Super Bowl history, as we move into Super Bowl 56 here. 36-year-old Zach Taylor, which is more than I was doing at 36, and 36-year-old Sean McVay, 38-year-old Zach Taylor. Let me get it right here. I don't know what that says about the league, but congrats to those guys on being elite at their careers, because that is impressive. I'm coaching in the Super Bowl. I'm in my mid-30s. Wow. Does that? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think what it tells you is this is the way the league's going to go. It's going to go younger. We've seen in recent years. Look, last year Arians and Reed, certainly older coaches, but the year before that, Reed was in it, but Kyle Shanahan was in it. We've seen some younger coaches recently, and even heck, look around. I mean, Shanahan was one of the other Final Four coaches, right? I mean, Andy Reid is the only one who was older, and he's one of the most innovative guys in the league. So I think what it speaks to is you have to have some innovation either in you or in your staff. Maybe Sean McDermott, not the most innovative guy, but Brian Daboll, a very innovative head coach now a head coach, an offensive coordinator with Buffalo. I think, look, we're skewed toward offense more than ever in the NFL right now. If you don't have a different way to attack defenses, you're in trouble. That's why, look, and we'll get into some of this. I think the McDaniel hire was not the McDaniels, but the McDaniel hire in Miami. Very good. I think he'll do well there. And we saw Brendan Staley this year, who is a lightning rod, right? Like some people love him. Some people think he's way too aggressive, but that's the way that the league's going for sure.
Outside, the opposite of McDaniel being Lovie Smith in Houston. For any Texans fans that are on here, I'd like to give my condolences. You just hired the most boring, bland, middle of the road head coach, perhaps in NFL history. Does have a great beard. And Benny, you're shaking your head here. Go ahead.
I think they might have lucked into some sort of stability if they choose to accept it. I think the problem with Houston is they wanted to hire Josh McCown.
Oh, yeah.
The timing of everything was just set up for them to fail. They wanted to bring him in. Clearly, there's something. If we're going on conspiracy theories, I'm convinced that the league basically came to them and said, you can't, with everything going on right now with the Flores situation, you cannot, in good conscience, get rid of David Culley with Lovie Smith sitting right there, who you chose not to interview for the first month of this entire process, and bring in Josh McCown. If eventually this is going to be your plan and maybe there's a succession plan here, that can be a part of it. But Lovie's an NFL head coach. Like the whole opportunity that he had in college in Illinois just wasn't really a good fit. Like, Carm, you've been around, you've covered that Bears team.
Yeah.
How many people do you know in that organization that played for Lovie Smith that still glow about him. Like maybe there's aspects of the defensive part of that system that have passed him by a little bit, but like that's a team that is in so much desperation for stability that if they actually give him the chance and he gets the offense right, maybe there's a chance that they could actually be all right. I don't think it's as bad of a hire as you're making it out to be.
I might be going a little over the top because he's just so boring and just, as I said, incredibly middle of the road. He's 59 and 57 in his career. Let's not forget the Tampa Bay stint, which was nothing. He was great. He was good with the Bears when they had an elite defense filled with Brian Urlachers and Peanut Tillmans. And, and he coached them up well, and those guys like him. That's true. You're right, Ben. Those guys would speak incredibly well of Lovey, but he had a ton of talent. I don't see this as, for current NFL, it's just not dynamic at all.
This isn't, and we can move on because I'm sure nobody cares about the Texans and the Bears. But I mean, this isn't about Lovie Smith. This is about an organization that has no idea what it's doing.
Correct.
And that's not to say that Lovie Smith is going to be an awful hire. I agree. I actually kind of agree with both of you guys at the same time. I think he does bring stability to them. He brings professionalism to them. At the same point, do I think that he was their first, second, third, or fourth choice? Nope. No chance. This idea, look, I've seen enough people this week carry water to be a camel. Okay. Like this notion that, oh, he emerged late in the process, but they've had their eye on him. Bullshit. This idea that, oh, no, he hasn't. He was with the team. If they wanted to hire him, they would have hired him a month ago. Now, I don't know if I'd go full grassy knoll like Heisler over there, but I do think there is something to look. You cannot hire a white head coach with no experience right now. Like, first of all, that sounds like a terrible idea anyway, but that really sounds like a terrible idea right about now. And so I do think there is part of that. I can tell you from being down in Mobile, you hear a lot of things. Okay, a lot of things. Some with merit, some that you kind of have to go, I don't know if I believe that. You didn't hear Lovie Smith once, like nothing. And I was down there with some people who would have known that. Okay, there was no buzz. A lot of people thought Gannon out of Philadelphia was going to get that job, and then the Flores lawsuit broke on Tuesday. And you're like, okay, does that take him out of the running? Nobody was like Lovie Smith is going to be the head coach of the Houston Texans. So, look, we can divest ourselves from this conversation, but that came out of left field to the hilt.
Well, I before we quote unquote divest ourselves from this conversation, I think we all agree that there should not be now two African American head coaches when the league is 70%. That's just it does not look good. It's not right. The NFL's hiring practices need to be strongly looked at. I don't know, solutions to it, not that easy. But I would propose that, listen, I don't know, of 5 coaching hires, 4 coaching hires, 1 has to be of an African American. Is that something that the NFL can move that would take them past the Rooney Rule? Is that
you can't do that though?
Why not?
Well, because let's just for the easy sake of this, let's just say the AFC North, all 4 teams have a vacancy. Mm-hmm. So now you're demanding that one of those coaches is a minority. Okay, well, I mean, whoever that last team is, if the other 3 guys get hired who aren't a minority.
No. I'm saying like each individual team, Verderam. Like you get of your last 4 hires.
I got you.
One.
Look, here, you know what? Here to me is the easy solution to this. And I say easy. It's not easy to implement, but it's easy in practice, or at least an ideal. Like the reason that there aren't more black head coaches in the NFL is because there aren't enough black head coaches getting jobs in the first place, or coaches, not head coaches, just coaches, assistant coaches getting jobs in the first place. You're not getting enough coaches in the pipeline. And if you talk to people in the league, that seems to be a common refrain. There are not enough minority coaches coming up who, usually if you come into the league, you start as like a quality control coach, right? And then you maybe move to a position. And then if you climb higher, you go to a coordinator. And then obviously from there, you can get a head coaching job. There are not enough black assistants who are getting jobs at quality control. Okay. There aren't enough black assistants who are, a D-line coach or a running backs coach or a receivers or a quarterbacks coach. And so think about it this way. When is the last time you heard of a vacancy in the NFL at the head coaching level where more of the candidates were black than white? Never. It never happens. It's almost always, if there's 8 candidates for a job, maybe 2 of them are black, maybe, not even that sometimes. And so you need to hire more minority coaches at the basic level of getting in and having more of a pool to pick from. And then look, yes, you can get into some of these owners want to pick people that look like them and people they're comfortable with because they're 70 years old and they're stuck in 1962. You can argue, and that's fine. And in a few cases, that's true. But I think in a lot of cases, there's just not enough of a pool. And what happens is if you interview 8 guys and 7 are white guys, just the odds are you're going to hire the white coach because there's 7 of the 8 are white. Now, I think you fix that by really focusing on getting a flow of black coaches into the coaching pool and letting everybody work their way up. It will not solve things immediately, but it will certainly help over the next handful of years.
We have a whole offseason. I'd have to do a deep dive on this, but I'm just, the coaches that are black that are in the pipeline right now, a lot of times they're running back coaches, they're DB coaches. We need more coordinators, more Eric Bieniemy's out there. Everybody wonders why he hasn't gotten a chance. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's not exactly an easy one to figure out. By the way, Ben's telling us in the chat that the Lovie Smith press conference was interrupted by a fire alarm and people are being evacuated from the building from Andrew Siciliano of the NFL Network, which is at least slightly ironic. Go ahead, Ben.
Really quickly, because you brought up Bieniemy, and I wonder if you might have some insight on this, Verderam, being with your connections in Kansas City. His contract is up, and there's been conversations that Bieniemy might consider going to another team, possibly getting out of the Andy Reid shadow and basically trying to attempt, despite being more than qualified to get an NFL head coaching job, of saying, all right, fine, if you're not going to hire me under these circumstances, despite multiple people getting head coaching jobs that aren't calling plays, and yet Bieniemy has called plays. It's called plays for a handful of years. It's still a collaboration effort. Would he leave? Would he feel like that's the best path forward to an NFL head coaching job? Or when you have somebody like Mahomes, why would you also want to leave that scenario? Have you gotten any sort of intel as to what Bieniemy might be considering or what the Chiefs might want to do? Because it seems like there's a lot of interest in bringing him back, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, I've reached out. I think it's expected. It's tight-lipped on it. I don't think guys want to speak for other guys, but I do get a sense around the league. Look, Bieniemy's interviewed for like 15 jobs at this point. Like literally, that's the number. Like 15 jobs, and obviously he's not gotten them. And you ask why, and there's a lot of talk about, well, his background. There are some red flags from a personal standpoint in terms of legalities, dating back to his days at Colorado. There's talk about, well, does he interview well? Some people believe he doesn't. I've talked to ex-players who love him, but some feel like, well, maybe he'd be a better fit as a college coach because of his personality. And is it too strong to be an NFL head coach? Look, I don't know. I'm not in the building with him every day. I will say this, though. You look around the league, and holy hell, there are guys who are getting jobs who you're like, how is that guy more qualified than Eric Bieniemy? Like, I don't. And by the way, I'm a big believer in, like, don't just spare me this whole, like, well, he doesn't interview particularly. He's a football coach. He's not running Goldman Sachs. Like, who's the best guy to run your football team? Now, obviously, look, if the interview is a disaster, you're not going to hire the man. I understand that. But, you're going to tell me that Joe Judge just blew the Giants' socks off with his interview? Really? You're going to tell me that Josh McDaniels is more qualified than Eric Bieniemy? What has Josh McDaniels ever done in his career when he hasn't had Brady? He stunk with the Rams. He stunk with Denver. And last year, their offense sucked. But he's got a job. Why? I mean, now I'm just using him as one example. You could do many, many, many examples here. We just talked about Lovie Smith. Now, I have a lot of respect for Lovie Smith, but, like, is he really a better hire than Eric Bieniemy would be? Like, is that really... Or the Saints hiring now. Look, Dennis Allen, I get it. He was in New Orleans' system. I understand all that. He's a very, very highly thought defensive coordinator. he was a disaster as a head coach at the Raiders. Now, maybe, look, that was a decade ago. Maybe Dennis Allen deserves another shot, and that's fine. I got no beef with that. But Bieniemy, it feels like at this point, it's the most common refrain is, well, he doesn't call plays. There are a lot of guys who don't call plays who have gotten these jobs. By the way, Doug Peterson was one of them, okay, who won a Super Bowl. Like, Bieniemy does not call the plays in Kansas City. Let's just be clear with this. Like, Andy Reid runs that show, but Bieniemy has a lot of influence in the way they play, and that is undeniable. Like, that is on record. That is fact. So I wish the man would get a head coaching job, but I think his best path forward is probably going back to Kansas City. You have Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill. Like, if you go somewhere else and you call the plays, but you're 19th in offense, that's not helping you any more than sticking with the Chiefs and maybe next year being second in the league in offense and winning a Super Bowl, right? Like, I think that's your best bet, even though it's been frustrating for him.
There is a long list of guys, as you're mentioning, Ferdinand, who have gotten chances to be head coaches who had no business getting chances. Matt Nagy called offensive plays for 5 games. 5.
And let me tell you something. Not the most impressive stretch of games either.
No,
Go back and
up,
look.
Right, 21-3 up in the playoffs, and you blew the game
They
in
were
Tennessee.
a train wreck offensively at the end of that year.
All right. We got an offseason to keep on diving into this. So let's just get a little bit into the Super Bowl here, even though I don't think it's completely moving the needle of everyone's. Maybe Snoop and Dre at halftime is going to be exciting, and football is football, so everyone's going to love it, get the chips, get the dips rolling. But I guess this is the Rams D versus the Bengals offense. Are we seeing it that way? Is that a fair assessment?
To a certain extent. I think there's a lot of really compelling matchups here. I think you have to start there because the sort of the number one conversation point I think going in is, well, maybe there's two, but if we're starting with that Carm, yeah, it's about whether or not Joe Burrow is going to be able to remain upright in this game. 9 sacks against Tennessee were not a positive. It was an indictment of that offensive line, but Burrow was able to bail them out in that game. And then you have the situation where they're down 3 touchdowns to Kansas City the following week, completely make adjustments. The defense for Cincinnati is fantastic. And now you have definitely the best pass rush that they're going to face. Better than Tennessee's, who sacked them 9 times.
Yeah.
What the Rams do exceptionally well is they generate pressure. They're number 3 in the league in pressure and quarterback sack rate, despite blitzing the 23rd, I think it's the 23rd least amount of all 32 teams in the NFL. So they're generating pressure with their front line. And Aaron Donald's a big part of that. How are you going to account for him? How are you going to slow him down? If not him, how do you worry about everybody else? And Von Miller coming in from the outside. Burrow can get the ball out really, really quick. And that's going to be an advantage too. But then you have to worry about the secondary for the Rams and who Ramsey is going to end up trying to lock down. Is it going to be Chase the entire time? Does that open up things for T. Higgins? I know Reed Wallach over at BetSided loves the over props on Tyler Boyd at 4. Somebody that can generate some opportunities in the middle of the field, get some easy completions from Burrow. Is CJ Uzoma going to be able to be effective coming off the injury that he suffered? So that's, I think, a big core of it. But if you flip it around and it's about the Bengals being able to create the same type of issues that Mahomes had, where they're dropping all these guys back, and Stafford's been really good against the blitz, but he also has been turnover prone over the course of his career. He's been better in the postseason. The second half of that game against the 49ers, he nearly cost them the game. So those matchups, I think, are going to be the key focal points. And part of the reason, and I know we'll get into some of those bets in a little bit, but it's part of the reason why I see a defensive battle despite 2 very good offenses coming in the Super Bowl.
I totally agree. I think this game is going to be very low scoring. This is not a game. The big lie in this playoffs run is that Joe Burrow's been incredible. Like, Burrow's been fine, but he's not been otherworldly.
It's been clutch.
Yeah, I mean, he's been efficient, but he hasn't been. Nobody can ever convince me, if they watch that AFC title game, that Joe Burrow was the reason they won that football game. I could give you 5 reasons off the top of my head why the Bengals won that game ahead of Joe Burrow. I mean, their defense was spectacular. Mahomes was awful. Andy Reid still thinks it's illegal to run the football. I mean, the Bengals were able to pressure Mahomes on key third downs. I think in the end, like they made a couple, like Mixon had a couple of big plays in there early that kind of kept them alive when it looked like all hope was lost. Obviously, the end of the first half, Burrow threw for 6.5 yards an attempt, threw a pick in the fourth quarter, and should have thrown a second one. Like, I do not think this is going to be a game where Burrow's going up and down the field on the Rams. I do not think that's happening. They can't block the Rams. So where I come down on this game, I think the Rams ought to win, and I think they ought to win somewhat going away. Although I would have said the same thing about Kansas City last week, and obviously we saw that played out. Stafford to me is the linchpin of this game. If I were McVay, I would treat him like he was a nuclear reactor. I would be horrified of him blowing up in this game. Like, look, man, hand the ball off, throw a couple of nice little routes. Like, we're good. You can throw for 200 in this game. We're probably going to win. What you cannot do is throw picks. And that is the thing with him, that if you're the Bengals, it keeps you alive in this football game. Because let's be honest. And I think this leads into, Carm, we talked about right before the show about the juice going into this game. The Rams, they don't win the game last weekend if Jaquiski Tartt just catches what essentially is an arm punt. I mean, that's one of the worst throws I've ever seen in a playoff game. And he got bailed out. Tartt dropped the ball. But that's a kind of a play that, like, if the Bengals catch that ball, or if Stafford throws a pick six, which he's more than capable of doing, they can win this game. Like, I think if you're the Bengals, you've got to hope he throws a pick or two, and you've got to be able to run the ball to some extent. You've got to slow them down up front. If it's second and long and third and long, good night. They will tee off on him. He will be running for his life in this football game. But I think the Bengals, if you get a turnover or two, you got a real shot to win. And Stafford's the kind of quarterback who will throw the ball up for grabs a few times in a game.
So just a couple things to underline here on the pressure points. Burrow, most sacked quarterback in the NFL this year, 51 times. Now, some of that is he's holding on to it a little bit too long, but the Bengals offensive line, as you guys are saying, as everyone's saying, not good. The Rams, most sacks in the NFL with 50. So they're NFL, win games up front, college football, high school football. Ben Heisler dominating Pee Wee football. By the way, Ben Heisler's wife compared him to a beaver. That's what she said if you check Ben's Twitter, which was one of the greatest moments in my Twitter day so far. We can get back to that. Heis, sorry to throw you under the bus here, but you put it out there on social media.
I put it out there, but it wasn't as if I like did anything. I didn't build anything. It's like, oh, like my husband, the beaver, setting up furniture in our kids' room. No. She just asked me randomly as I was like getting into bed, like what animal I think I look like. And before I even had a chance to respond, she said, a beaver. I'm like, the hell?
That hurts.
Yeah.
I as a slight alum to Beaver, that lifestyle, those dudes are cool. It's not a huge insult. I think you're
so?
No, I think it's all right. I think it's a fine, crafty animal that she just gave you. I mean, to me, that was borderline big props. I mean, a horse would have been better, a beautiful animal, but
horse, tiger. I would have been happy with a dog, Carm, like just something that's like lovable and sweet and maybe a little bit cute. Who's making beaver comps these days?
Apparently your wife.
Apparently.
Yeah. Let me just, but the Burrow part of this equation to me, as we bounce around here, is interesting to me. This dude's in his second year in the league. He's coming off a borderline career-ending knee injury. He looked terrible at the beginning of the year. The Bears beat him. He was hobbling around. Now he finishes up the year. Let me make sure I have this right. Burrow led the NFC in completion percentage. He led the AFC, excuse me, and he led the AFC in yards per attempt. Now, part of that is, Ja'Marr Chase is out of his mind, and he's catching 7-yard outs or whatever slants, and he's taking it to the house. But though that is a tremendous combination. Aside from the intangibles of Burrow, if they win this game and he does it against the Rams defense, it's going to be a whole lot of Joe Burrow talk. And where does he rank? Is he in the top 5 and all that type of stuff? And he'll deserve it, really. Even though he hasn't been, as you said, Vernon, it's not like they beat the Chiefs because of Burrow, but this would be an incredible bow on a phenomenal year.
It would be. I'm torn because I sound like such a hater with the guy, and I'm not. I actually really love watching him play. I just think sometimes narratives like go so out of control. Like he's been very good in the regular season. He's been fine in the playoffs. Like I mean, they beat the Titans because Tannehill threw 3 picks. The Bengals scored 19 points in that game. Like in the AFC title game, the Bengals had one drive of more than 30 yards that went for a touchdown. One. The entire game. They're winning because of their defense right now. That's why they're winning. And look, you got to give credit. Burrow got sacked 9 times in one game and was able to keep things together. He deserves a lot of credit for that. Played well against the Raiders. I'll be honest, I didn't think he played well at all against Kansas City. They won the game because of a million other things. But look, if they win the Super Bowl, it becomes a very interesting conversation around him. And, I see Shrek jumping in saying he's top 4 quarterback only behind Rodgers, Mahomes, and Allen. Like you could make the case. I mean, Brady's retired, right? I will listen. I know this, especially with my background, comes off as like being a homer. Mahomes, I would take 10 times out of 10 over Joe Burrow. I would take Josh Allen over Joe Burrow, regardless of how Sunday plays out. Same with Rodgers. I got to tell you, I think there's an argument like Herbert. Now you could argue that. That one's an arguable one. I think Herbert's a much more talented player, but Burrow is maybe more of a winner at this point. Now, how much of that's on the quarterback and how much that's on the team, you could go. But listen, there's no arguing this point. Burrow has done a tremendous job. They are in the Super Bowl. They would not even be in the playoffs without him. He has led them in ways that franchise has not been led in 3 decades. And if they win against the Rams, you would have to think he will have to play very, very, very well to win this football game. So give him all the credit in the world. I will say to the larger point, I think, and we could talk about this more in the offseason, the AFC over the next 10 to 15 years is going to just be ridiculous. I mean, if you win the Super Bowl coming out of the AFC, you did something. Between Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Herbert and Lamar and maybe Deshaun Watson, and if Rodgers gets traded to Denver, and all, I mean, my God, you are going to be running an unbelievable gauntlet in the regular season, let alone in the playoffs. It's incredible the amount of young talent in the AFC right now at that position.
You brought up something interesting about Burrow because in that game against Kansas City, the bulk of the time he was fairly pedestrian. I would agree with that. But man, those 3rd down and long conversions where this is what I think sort of extends the narrative a little bit and makes Burrow a bit more legendary in the second year. Those 3rd and long runs.
They were the best plays he had the whole game.
But
I agree.
But considering the injury and considering the scheme and him, like I think I'm trying to remember where I saw this article. I wish I could give it credit. Where he had gone to his head coach and said, like, they're leaving me some room in the middle of the field. Like, I'm going to run here. Like, there's a recognition factor with Burrow that is far beyond his years. And so I've heard Dave Wannstedt talk about how, compared to many other quarterbacks since Brady, he looks at Burrow, and again, it's one man's opinion, but he views Burrow and his preparation and his mindset as close to Brady as any other quarterback that he has seen come into the league since then. So Burrow could be that guy where he's not going to beat you with this tantalizing arm talent or exceptional athletic ability. He's going to beat you with his mind. He's going to beat you with those plays that just extend drives enough, keep the guys on the field, move the offense down, pick your defense apart. And to do it the way in which he did it last week, when this was somebody that entered the season having very little trust in his ability to move. That was a common theme in the preseason, right? Burrow had talked about he still hadn't gotten that confidence back. He didn't trust his body. And going into the season, that was the talk around the Bengals, is like, is Joe Burrow going to be able to have the mental fortitude to get himself to the point where they can be more competitive than they were a season ago and they won 4 games? That, to me, I think sells the narrative on Burrow a little bit more, is that all the shit that he had to overcome over the course of the year is fairly impressive. So I agree with you, Matt. Like, from a talent level, he's not up there with those guys, but that's okay, because he's finding a whole bunch of other ways to beat you, and it's been awfully impressive.
Dude throws a beautiful ball. I want to follow up on Lucas's comment. Burrow is like Brady because, like Brady, won't be the number one reason why their teams won their first ring. That is a tall glass of water in praise right there, comparing him to the GOAT. By the way, the GOAT is going to come back. I don't know if people are paying attention to his.
No, he's not.
Tom Brady.
He's retiring at 44 just to what? To hang out and have some pina coladas and then come back at 45 when he's a year older?
He doesn't want to retire. His quote, he was on Jim Gray's podcast, quote, "I try to make the best possible decision I can in the moment," which I did this last week. And again, I think it's not looking to reverse course. I'm definitely not looking to do that. But in the same time, I think you have to be realistic that you never know what challenges are going to be in life. Again, I loved playing. I'm looking forward to doing things other than playing. That's as honest as I can be with you there. This dude, for people that retire when they know that they can still play and it's their favorite thing that they do in their entire life. I know he's 44 and he's that's crazy to even consider, but this dude is built differently. He just was one of the top quarterbacks in the league. I would not be surprised if we haven't seen the end of him. I want that on the record. To me, it smells a whole lot like Michael Jeffrey Jordan in '98. Never say never. Okay,
Jordan wasn't 100 when he retired.
Yeah, but in basketball terms, he retired and sat for 3 years and came back at 39 years old because he's that big of a lunatic. Like, I don't know. This is, we're 20 years past when Jordan was doing it. Michael was smoking cigars and drinking whiskey before games, or at least smoking cigars before games when he was a Wizard, and even as a Bull in the 90s. Brady's eating kale 24 hours a day. I'll probably continue to do that. I would not be surprised if there is a return to football for the dude. He definitely did not want to retire, and just felt like he had to because of family obligations. Those things get twisted over time. That's all I'm saying. Thank you for letting me get that out on the record. I know you vehemently disagree, Verderam.
I just don't think, his family, what's going to happen? Are they all going to go away the next year? Are they going somewhere? I mean, where are they going?
No, he's going to sit. He's going to sit in his bedroom. He's going to mope and he's going to make their life miserable. And they're like, "Okay, Tom, go back and do what you want to do." They'll just be like, "All right, we thought it would be sweet to have you home, but it didn't turn out that way at all." We get it. This is who you are. You want to do it one more time. You feel like there's something left in the tank. You want to get every last bit out. I get it. That's things change. We'll see.
We've been on this pod for 35 minutes. We still haven't picked the Super Bowl.
Okay, let's pick it. Let's go, Verderam. Who do you got?
The Rams. I think the Rams are the game. The Bengals are a great story. But, we talked a little bit, kind of alluded to, there's a lack of juice to this game. I think it's because nobody thinks these are the best teams in the game. I think that's a big part of it, isn't it? Like the Packers aren't there, the Bucs aren't there, the Bills aren't there, Kansas City's not there. If you're in Cincinnati, or maybe you're one of the 9 fans who's a Rams fan in Los Angeles, you're excited. But I think I think it's going to be a good game. But does anybody feel like the best teams in football are going to be in this game? I maybe they do. I've told a lot of people, it's this game's going to be played. I don't think the Bengals can block the Rams, and you say, well, they didn't block the Titans. The Rams aren't the Titans. The Rams have a lot more weapons. I don't think they can guard Kupp and Beckham in this game. The Rams also have one thing going for them that the Bengals don't, and that's desperation. The Rams have all these veteran guys who know how hard it is to get here, who have been waiting forever to get to this point. The Bengals, and I say this lovingly, I think this is actually a compliment. It's like the young and dumb thing, right? You don't know any better because, Chase is a rookie and Burrow's in his second year and Higgins is in, I believe, his second year. You have less urgency where if you're like Andrew Whitworth and you're like, man, I got to win now. If you're Odell, you got to win now. If you're Jalen Ramsey, Stafford, all these guys, Kupp, now. You've got to do it right now. And they're at home. They're at home in the game. I don't think they'll blow the Bengals out, but I think they'll win something like 27-17. I just think it'll be a game where the Bengals give a good showing and they're representative. And I wouldn't be shocked, by the way, if the Bengals win, because I could see Stafford throwing 2 pick sixes in a quarter and the game just ending right there. But if he doesn't throw those picks, I just don't think the Bengals have enough to win this game. I don't think the Bengals should have had enough to win the last game, but they did because the other team imploded. If the Rams don't implode on themselves, I think they win.
Ben, what do you got? By the way, I just tweeted out that my dog is dead asleep listening to the podcast, and I'm taking offense to it. I need a little bit more interaction while we're talking. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, if you had a beaver at home, Carm, it'd be a little bit different.
Exactly.
Wide awake,
exactly.
ready to go. I like the Rams in this game. The fact that they're laying 4 and the line really hasn't shifted from where it opened. Started at 3.5, worked slightly up to 4.5, and I think a couple books have it at that number. If you like the Rams and you got it at 4 over at WinBet, that's probably a number that you're going to want to take. I will say that if you're looking to get on the Bengals side, this also might be an ideal time because the public, I think, is going to back Cincinnati. I think they like Burrow. I think they like the underdog. He's delivered for them throughout the course of the postseason. So maybe there's an opportunity to get the Rams very late in the week at 3.5, but I don't see this line moving. It's been fairly consistent over the course of the week. I was thinking about, you were talking about this matchup, Matt, and whether or not it's the matchup that everybody really wanted to see. Like, is it the two most compelling teams in the Super Bowl? And I was trying to think of like different Super Bowls to compare this to, because last year you had that matchup. You had Kansas City, you had Pat Mahomes, you had Tampa Bay and Tom Brady.
Right.
And throughout the course of the week, I've been saying that I think this year's Super Bowl is going to have a fairly similar feel, because I think you're going to see one quarterback be completely overwhelmed by the other team's front four and just be running for his life. And it's not going to go well offensively. And I see a situation in which the Rams really just take over because there's no answer on the defensive side of the ball. They just can't stop anybody. But I think the Super Bowl that this actually compares to, maybe a little bit more similarly, is Super Bowl 50, when the Broncos beat up the Carolina Panthers. You had Cam Newton coming in, and they still had weapons on the offensive side of the ball, but you had no answer for that Denver defense. And we talked about whether or not the Rams are going to try and hide Stafford in this game. That's exactly what Denver did. Denver ran the ball against Carolina fairly effectively. C.J. Anderson had those big yards, big plays. They set the tone with the running game. Yeah, exactly. I kind of think it's going to be that type of feel where it's just enough from an offensive side of the ball where the Rams are going to be able to have more playmakers and make more plays in space. And the run game is going to open up what they want to do offensively. Plenty of opportunities for Cooper Kupp in the middle of the field. You can take some shots with Beckham. And for Burrow, for as unbelievable as he has been, I just can't envision a way that he escapes that kind of pressure. He just does not have enough help, even with all the playmakers that he has on the field, even with a very solid running game. At some point, especially with an extra week of rest for that Rams front four, there's just not going to be anything that's going to be able to stop him. So I like the under in this game. I like the Rams to cover the 4. And unfortunately, I just don't envision a scenario where this is a particularly competitive Super Bowl.
Wow.
I'm with you on all fronts.
I'm okay. I'm surprised that you just said that, Ben, because I mean, literally, if you look at, 58% of the money right now is on the Rams. So, which leads me, of course, in Carm betting world too. I'm taking the Bengals.
Here's the thing, really quick, Carm. I don't want to cut you off, but the difference in fading the money in the Super Bowl versus the rest of the year is this is the most bet day ever. Right. It's the Super Bowl. Maybe you can make an argument that March Madness over time ends up with a larger handle, but from a public betting perspective, they're not only keeping up with the sharps, they're outbidding them. There's so much money coming in from casual bettors who want a piece of the action on the Super Bowl that fading the public in this particular scenario isn't necessarily the play in which we would normally think it is.
I appreciate that qualification. I'm still going to fade the public, even in the Super Bowl, despite Heisler underlining what's maybe puts a big gigantic hole in my argument here. Not that I really have an argument. I'm just that's just what I do. I'm a fader. I don't base it on anything other than I think the public's going to be wrong. However, I do think it's very interesting that if you look at who people picking this game, it's down the middle. Half people picking Cincinnati, half people picking the Rams. I mean, to the expert public, whoever gets paid to do this, it's a coin flip. Verderame, you're shaking your head on that.
No, look. I know I'm coming off as like a big hater of the Bengals. Honestly, I've actually really enjoyed them this year. I just think they're over their skis right now. I do. I think the AFC title game was a shit show that Kansas City gave away a million ways to Sunday. And now you get into this game. Look, here's the case for the Bengals in this game. Stafford throws some hideous pick that just completely turns this game on its ear, right? Like early in the game, throws some ball he should never throw, and it's pick sixth. And all of a sudden, the game flips. Like, I will forever argue with any nerd who says that momentum isn't a real thing in sports. Yes, it is. And if the first drive of the game, throws a pick six to Eli Apple, all of a sudden, all the pressure in the world's on the Rams. Like, you're down 7-0. The Bengals are loosey-goosey. Everything feels great. You're winning. I don't think the Bengals are going to cave emotionally in this game because they've been down big to the Chiefs. They came back and they won. Like, I don't think the Bengals are going to fold. They're not built that way. I don't think that will happen. But I do think it could be kind of like the first half of the AFC title game where the Chiefs are just rolling and there's not much the Bengals can do. And unlike Andy Reid, Sean McVay will just run the football. Like that will be the difference in this game. Sean McVay will go, I'll hand off 20 times in the second half. I don't care. We will completely take this out of Stafford's hands. We will milk the clock. And the problem for the Bengals has been alluded to, and he's right on. If the Rams get up in this game to a point where Cincinnati has to throw the football, it's a wrap. Like this isn't the Titans where like if you get the 19 points, you're going to win. Like this is a game where if Burrow's got to just throw and throw and throw, the Rams they don't have to blitz. They'll drop 7 and just tee off on the Bengals the entire game. Like that's where if you're the Bengals, you have to get out in front. You have to have balance to your offense. If they can do that, they have a shot. If they get down the way they got down to the Chiefs, it's a totally different scenario in this game. The Rams will run and they'll tee off with 4, and that'll be the end.
All right, I'll give you a couple things here just to underline the Stafford part of this. The Rams are 11-0. 11-0 when Stafford has a quarterback rating over 100. Okay, this is a very, very obvious. So he plays well, they win. But just when he plays well, they win. 11-0. Now he's 60. His quarterback rating against pressure is 63.4. Now he's good against blitzes and picking up blitzes and getting rid of it quickly. But the Bengals rushed 3 against the Chiefs and they sacked Mahomes twice. So if Cincinnati can get pressure with 4 without blitzing, he does not perform particularly well against pressure. So there is that. There's also that weird Matthew Stafford moment that you're underlining, Werner Ram, where he just does things that you're like, what the hell just happened there? So for the Bengals to win, you're going to be watching them. What the hell did he just do there? You're going to see them getting pressure with 3 and or 4. And you're going to see sort of that it factor of Joe Burrow coming through over Stafford. Plus, the Bengals, look, I mean, Burrow under pressure, he's very good at dumping the ball off to his running backs. So, I mean, Joe Mixon could have a big day catching the football. He might rush for 40 and catch, 60 yards worth of balls. So, and the Rams, by the way, are at home too, which is something we haven't talked about, which I get that you can't script these things, but there's something about that does not feel right. I mean, Brady was at home last year, and now Stafford and company are at home this year. But so that's my argument for the Bengals. My one thing on the Rams, the Cooper Kupp thing, no one can cover this guy. Yeah, I saw in the chat earlier, Eli Apple, and the Bengals had some. I mean, he is just constantly wide freaking open. The guy is so good.
He's amazing. I forget if it was you or Ben who mentioned this earlier, and I would do this. If I'm the Bengals, I'd drop 8 guys this entire game. I would make him throw into cut. And look, the Rams will take the invitation that the Chiefs didn't, and they'll run the ball at him. And I think if you're them, you live with it. If you're the Bengals, you say, look, I don't care. You want to rush for $150, fine. We will live with that. We have to win on third down and win in the red zone. I think for the Bengals, that's how you win. Now, look, that's hard to do over and over and over. That's a hard thing to do.
Bengals have
But
not been good on third down. Go ahead.
You have to. If I'm the Bengals, I'm saying, look, we got to get that MFer to throw one ball right at us. Like, that's what we have to do. We've got one or two where he just look. I like Stafford, but through his whole career, he is always good for one or two throws in a game that you're like, what in the hell is he doing? Why did he throw that ball? What is he looking at? He will do it. The Bengals have to catch the ball if it's thrown at him, and they've got to get him into a few of these where, hey, look, you know what? He gets impatient. He tries to fire a ball in the coverage. I would watch the Bengals. If I'm the Bengals, I'd watch the Niners tape. In 3 games, they picked them off in every game. 2 different games, they had multiple picks. And in the NFC title game, they should have had multiple picks. Like, if I'm playing them the same way, and I'm begging him to throw the ball into coverage. And you know what? If he doesn't do it, you're probably losing. And that's why if I'm the Rams, if they do that, if I'm McVay, I'm saying, good Lord, do not throw the ball. We're going to run it and run it and run it and run it, just like they did against the Cardinals. They threw 17 times. And that's how you win this game. It's going to be interesting. I don't think the Bengals have no chance, but I do think the Rams are deserved favorites, and they should win this game. That Stafford throwing picks, it happens. It could be the equalizer.
Ben, get to some of your favorite props, by the way, but I think you want to follow up on that point as well. But I want to hear the Heisler props.
Yeah, really quickly on Stafford, because I think this is worth discussing, because we've mentioned his propensity to throw a bad pick at a bad time. But we do need to give him some credit during this postseason as well, because he's been the best quarterback in the league against the blitz over the course of this year. Like, that's a fact.
Yep.
In the game against Arizona, they blitzed him heavily. 50% of his dropbacks, ended up completing 13 of 17 passes, 202 yards, 2 scores. He was outstanding against the blitz in that game. Arizona played right into his strength. Then the game against the Niners, while he still made that one mistake that could have cost them the game, he also tore him up when they did not blitz. And this is from John Helmkamp over at BetSided. When he was not pressured against the 49ers, he completed 24 of 29 passes, 254 yards, and 2 scored. He has thrown 6 touchdowns and only 1 interception throughout the playoffs. He's gone over 300 yards in the last 2 games. He's beating you when they blitz, and he's beating you when they're not creating extra guys coming into his lanes as well. There's an aspect of Matthew Stafford that I think, because they haven't faced the Bengals, is actually an advantage for him. Normally for quarterbacks, it's kind of the opposite, right? All right, I've seen these defensive fronts before. I kind of know what to expect. I can make adjustments. With Stafford, it's kind of been the opposite this year. Like, he knows how to exploit because he's following the game plan. When he starts to overthink it because he's starting to see fronts and things start to change a little bit, that's when he's more likely to mess up. Part of the other reason that I feel a little bit more confident in him this particular game against this defense for Cincinnati, while granted they've been better and they've made more adjustments, but if they can get off to a nice lead, I think, like you said, McVay is going to run, and they have a decisive advantage in the running game, knowing that they can take time off the ball or take time off the clock. They have Akers in there, back and healthy. I just think this sets up very well for the Rams. You're asking me for a prop. Let's go back to Joe Burrow for a second. His rushing yards is set at 11.5. For the most part this season, Joe Burrow has not been a running quarterback, but we talked about a lot of the reasons why. He was recovering from a very serious knee injury, didn't trust his body. Over the course of the season, he only averaged about 8 rushing yards per game. However, this is a matchup, again, you'll see similar things from the Rams front that you saw against the Chiefs. They're going to generate some pressure, and he was able to make adjustments when he needed to. He saw openings and he took it. There's no reason for Joe Burrow to be like, all right, I got to make sure that I don't get myself hurt here. I'm going to extend plays. This is the way that we have to win. And he's going to be able to be running over the course of this game. He's going to have to. He can't stay in the pocket all day against somebody like Aaron Donald. And the way that you force teams like the Rams to make adjustments is if you beat them on 2nd and long, on 3rd and long with your legs. He's going to take off at least 6-7 times in this game. And all he has to get by is at 11.5 number, which has already been juiced up over at WinBet to -125. And for anyone that's unfamiliar with what that means, -125 odds is you bet 125 to win 100. On the other side, on the under, I think it's currently listed at -105. So the odds are much more stacked towards Burrow going over his rushing prop compared to under. And I think because of the fact that he's running for his life anyway in this game, he's going to have to extend drives. He's going to have to make plays with his legs to be able to keep this team in the game. So I very much like the over on 11.5 rushing yards for Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl.
I love the logic. And then, of course, the other side of it is if the dude gets sacked 8 times, then he's going to have to run for 100 yards to get to 11, which is a lot.
That doesn't count against rushing yards, Carl.
If he takes off and out of the pocket, it doesn't. Is that right?
No. Yeah. If you get sacked, it does not count as losing rushing yards.
That's correct.
Okay, I take that back, and Carm has been corrected.
Time to learn stuff, Carm. Time to learn. Time to learn the sport you cover.
I swear it. Okay.
No, don't waste your time. You're wrong.
Okay, I'm wrong.
I
own
it. It counts to the team's like total yardage because you're going backwards. But unless now, if it's a designed run and he loses 6, then yeah. But if it's a passing play that breaks down and he gets sacked, then
so it counts against passing yards and not rushing yards, correct? Because Justin Fields threw for 1 yard against the Browns. That's because he got sacked that much? Is that right?
It counts against the team's total passing yards, not his personal passing yardage.
Okay.
We can go back and check. Was that the Cleveland game?
That was the Browns game. He threw for 1 yard. He was sacked.
He did not throw for 1 yard. They had 1 yard passing.
Right. So it counts against the team passing yards, but not his
against him.
He got credit for whatever his 54.
He still was awful.
Obviously. Okay. But so it counts against the team. But does it count against the team rushing yards? No. Just counts against team passing yards. Okay. Yeah. All right. Learning something.
The Bears had 1 net passing yard in that game.
Right. And so how many times was he sacked for how many yards?
He was sacked 9 times, and I just exited out, but I will be able to find it for you.
You're quick like that. Okay. All right. Carm corrected. Fair enough. Hey, Vernon, we got a bunch of topics here that we didn't have. Let's just machine gun through them. And Ben, weigh in here. Tom Brady, greatest player in NFL history is how you wrote it.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's the greatest player in NFL history. I think he's the greatest winner in NFL history. I wrote in my column, he's not Michael Jordan. He's Bill Russell. Like he played against more talented players throughout his career, just like Russell did with guys like Chamberlain, and yet just dominated because of his intellect and his skill set, but also just this indomitable, like, I'm going to win the game by any means necessary. Like, I always look at Brady and say, he's the greatest quarterback sneak artist of all time, which is a ridiculous thing, right? Like, but that's something that he always could do. If he needed a yard, they got a yard. They always got a yard. Like, his success rate is unbelievable in those spots. To me, he's not Jerry Rice. He's not Lawrence Taylor. He's not those otherworldly talents, but he's the greatest winner the sport's ever seen. And for that, he deserves to be in a pantheon at quarterback all to his own.
That's a really interesting comp for Brady. I think the level of competitiveness is at the same level as Jordan. I think Brady is an absolute insatiable winner. And you're right, from a talent level, it doesn't add up, but that's been a theme throughout his whole career. He's had to outwork you to get to the level that he's gotten to. So I think there's sort of like a little bit of wiggle room there. Greatest competitor in the NFL that we've ever seen, greatest winner in the NFL. But I don't think it's a debatable topic that there have been better and more talented quarterbacks to play. I think Brady would even admit that.
Right. There's no way he's the greatest thrower of the football. There's no way he's the best runner from a quarterback standpoint.
But he would tell you that doesn't matter to him.
Right. Well, listen, it is hard to argue against Tom Brady in his career. Good luck doing that. But I'm with Verderam, and very few people that look. If you put him in, say, Chicago for his career, if you put him in Cincinnati, Bengals going for their first ever Super Bowl victory, would he have had the same level of success? I think the clear answer is no. Is he? But you can't do that really because he did it, and then at the end of his career, he goes and does it in Tampa. Now, granted, great job, Tom Brady, the GM. Where should I go where I have a chance to do it again? The Bucks are loaded. And by the way, not that many people are saying it. This is the prime time opportunity for me. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to argue against him as the greatest player in NFL history, just when considering all his accomplishments. I mean, what are you going to base it on? If you're saying the most talented player, clearly not. But like, how do you argue against it, Verderam?
I think Jerry Rice or Lawrence Taylor are to me the greatest players in NFL history. Like Taylor literally changed the way that games were played to figure out a way to block him. Like teams invented new offenses to stop him. Jerry Rice is so far ahead of any other receiver in NFL history. It's comical. Like Jerry Rice was a better receiver at 40 than some Hall of Fame guys were at 30. I mean, it's not, I don't want this to be taken as I'm knocking Brady because look, he is, if you said to me, you have to win one game, who do you want? Him. I want him. Like he's the greatest quarterback to me in NFL history. I don't even know who else you'd even put in it. Like who else? Maybe you take Montana, maybe you take him or of a certain generation, a Johnny Unitas, somebody like that. But I would take Brady. I'd take Brady in a heartbeat. And I think it's a credit to say, look, there were guys more talented. Like Brady got everything out of himself in ways that most human beings never dream of doing. Aaron Rodgers is a way more talented quarterback, right? Like I don't think anyone would argue that. I think, as Ben pointed out, I think Brady would tell you that. Rodgers doesn't win shit. Like, I mean, at some point that matters. Now, yeah, I've heard the whole, if Rodgers played with Belichick, I don't believe that for 2 seconds. He might have more than one. He wouldn't have 7. There's no way. Like, you're going to tell me Russell Wilson would have 7? I don't think he would. Brady elevated himself and his teammates in a way. Like, I always think it's fascinating. You think of Brady, right? You think of his most prolific years, and you think of Welker and Moss. They never won a Super Bowl with them. Like, Welker never won a Super Bowl with them. Moss never won a Super Bowl. He won his Super Bowls with Deion Branch and Troy Brown and David Patton. And then in the second go-around with Malcolm Mitchell and Danny Amendola and like Edelman and Gronk. Sure, look, Edelman was terrific and Gronk was great. But, those... It wasn't like he was out there with Moss and Chris Carter or with Rice and Craig and John Taylor and Brent Jones. He wasn't. So I do think he's the greatest quarterback ever. But I guess my point is I think like Mahomes to me or Rodgers is more of the like with Jordan is just unbelievably otherworldly talented. And then he married that with being a maniac. I don't think Brady was ever otherworldly talented. But he, like Bill Russell, was just an indomitable winner. Like the guy just won everything all the time, like whatever it took. And that to me is the ultimate compliment in a lot of ways.
Which is why the way he went out, by the way, even though they lost, like this game's over. No, it's not, because it's him. And somehow, some way, they end up tying the game in the fourth quarter. That was incredible. I mean, the greatest Super Bowl win. I think you gotta point to Atlanta, right? You're down 28-3, and you win the Super Bowl. You are an insane person. It's a good nuanced argument. I enjoy it. All right, let's look at the draft real quick. How many quarterbacks in the first round? Some are saying none. I love Desmond Ridder because I got to talk to him. He's I guess who's getting the highest acclaim right now. But I mean, we're talking about a list of people that no one. I mean, unless you're a diehard football fan, you're not exactly paying attention to Mark Willis at Liberty or Sam Howell at Carolina or even Kenny Pickett at Pitt.
It's Malik Willis.
Thank you.
Mark Willis.
What did I say, Mark? I don't know. That's amazing.
Like a welder from Piscataway. No.
I have it written down right here, Malik Willis. I am losing my mind. Go ahead.
I think there's going to be 3 in the first round.
Do you really?
Yes. Yep. I was down in Mobile this week. Let me tell you something right now. Malik Willis is going to be going in the first round. I think he'll go in the top 10 picks.
Had you seen him play before the Senior Bowl? Before Mobile?
Yes, I have. And I get it. Look, no, here's my take on him is he's very inconsistent, and his accuracy is scattershot because I think his mechanics are scattershot. But man, if you know anything about the NFL, people love tools and traits and all that stuff. That kid, I watched 6 quarterbacks throw down in Alabama, okay, including Kenny Pickett, including Sam Howell, including Ritter and Carson Strong as well, by the way. Those kids looked like me throwing the ball compared to Malik Willis. Like, the ball was just a rocket ship out of that kid's hand. Like, there were some throws that he was making, like, oh my God. Like, that kid, wow. I'll tell you what, from a tools perspective, he reminds me of what Josh Allen was coming out of college. Not what he is now. Not what he is now. What he was coming out. Kid who had legs, who could move, who had a cannon for an arm. A little bit more accurate than Allen coming out of college, I might add. Okay? A little bit more. He was not under that 60% clip. He's around a little above 60. If you're the Falcons, Willis is from Atlanta. The best case scenario, I think, for Willis is to be drafted by a team that has an offensive mind that can sit him for a year. Atlanta is perfect for that. Carolina is perfect for that. Denver might be perfect for that. Those 3 teams right around that 10th overall pick, I look at and go, that's – and by the way, the Steelers, it's a worst-kept secret in the world down in Mobile that they really like him. So I think he will go. Kenny Pickett is a guy who a lot of people seem to really like, interviews well, all those things. From a talent perspective, I will say now I have not watched a lot of him other than the Senior Bowl. I don't get it necessarily. Like, I'm not overwhelmed by Kenny Pickett's ability, but he will probably go in the first round. And then I think Matt Corral probably goes in the first round too.
You don't think Ritter goes in the first round?
No.
Okay.
By the way, and I like Desmond Ritter. Got to chat with him during the, not one-on-one, but just the press conference, the open media portion. He was asked who he looks up to as a quarterback, and he had one of the more bizarre answers I've ever heard. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, I tweeted out the quote, but he compared himself to Deshaun Watson in terms of decision making, and then he said, I also like Ryan Tannehill's game management skills.
Okay.
I was like, that's something. Like, and by the way, look, obviously the Deshaun Watson thing, I mean, it was, of course he's talking about on the field, but it was like, man, that's what you like about Deshaun Watson is decision making. And then he backed it up with Ryan Tannehill that he likes the way he manages games. I mean, I was like, that answer's not helping you move up the board.
I was going to say, you know what I like about that answer is
that's honest.
It's honest, and it was not a coached up answer.
No, it was not.
What I'm curious about, because I really don't know any of these guys other than watching them maybe play a game or two, but the consensus takeaway that I've heard coming out of Mobile is that none of these guys would have gone ahead of anybody that was drafted in the first round last year at the quarterback spot.
No way.
So teams are going to reach because it's still the quarterback spot, and guys will get hyped up, and Willis is a classic example of this, and whichever team ends up reaching and go and get him, they'll hope that he's the guy.
Yep. Malik Willis's uncle, on a quick Google search, James Anderson, Verderam. Do you know him, Mr. Football?
No, I do not know him.
He played college football at Virginia Tech, 11 seasons in the NFL, drafted in the 3rd round, 2006, Carolina Panthers. So he's got football heritage in the family, for whatever that's worth. But now, you are
quarterback taken.
You are forever tied to Malik Willis with me now. I will say that Verderam on Stacking the Box on February the 8th ahead of the Bengals and the Rams, which is in a Super Bowl that, by the way, us talking about it today, I just got excited to watch. I think it's going to be great. I'm fired up for
I'll
Sunday.
be in the press box, and I don't know how excited I am. I got to get myself to that level.
I mean, you're dealing with the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs have just woefully underachieved and ruined your life again. So I understand.
Funny, though. After they won the Super Bowl, I feel like I have a totally different perspective. That loss would have annoyed me to no end. By Monday morning when I flew to Mobile, I was over it. I was just like, what are you going to do? I mean, in some ways, it's nice I don't have the stress. I can just go watch a football game. But, yeah, I mean, that game was an atrocity, an absolute atrocity. That being said, I think, look, it'll be, look, if Burrow wins, it's a great story for the NFL, right? I mean, you have this young kid, and now he's got a championship, and now all of a sudden it's like, all right, he and Mahomes have their rings. Allen and Herbert are chasing behind. Lamar's chasing behind. I think it becomes very interesting.
Yeah, and the Arrowhead Addict podcast is headed out to California.
Yeah, I'll be there
without the Chiefs, but we're still going. It's a great example of moving forward in life when things don't go your way. You guys are still going.
I'm getting paid either way, Carm.
Exactly right. You're still going, baby. That's what you do. Stacking the boxes. I'm hanging out. And Benny's hanging out. By the way, Ben, I know you got some stuff going on over at Bedside that people should know about.
Yeah, for anybody that's been enjoying, joining us every week on Stacking the Box, Bedside is going to be doing some fun stuff both today and Thursday for some live streams. We're going to be going around. The entire crew is going to be giving out our favorite prop bets for the Super Bowl today. That's going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can watch that right here on YouTube. You can check us out over at Betside. It's going to be streaming on Twitter as well. And then on Thursday, we're going to be back this time also at 4 p.m. Eastern. We're all going to be doing a draft, the entire Bet-sided team of our top prop, our best anytime touchdown scorer, and then a wild card. So if you're looking for all different ways to bet on the Super Bowl, something a little bit different, something a little bit more fun, the stakes will be enormous. Please do check us out right here on YouTube at Betside, and then of course at fansided.com/betsided.
Subscribe to the YouTube Betside and make yourself some money, get yourself entertained. Right. See more Heisler, live the dream. Verram, what's going on in your life? Let's say goodbye.
I can't even remember what the hell I wrote down.
You said something about you're never gonna fly again.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, I can't wait till I'm done flying. I hate it. I do. I hate everything about it. I don't even have a fear of flying. I just hate flying. I hate it. You get the Mobile, which, by the way, like, the city does a great job putting on the Senior Bowl. I will give them. They do a great job. And man, if you go down there, shout out to the Loda Beer Garden. My God, the tots and the burgers are amazing. But man, like, it's such a bitch to get. You got to fly to Atlanta and then connect into Mobile, and then, like, which is okay, whatever, fine, first world problem. Then getting out of there is an ungodly shit show. So on Thursday, I initially was going to take a red eye out of there. I wanted to go to the practice on Thursday, meet with some more, people in the league, whatever, get as much insight as I could, and then get on the flight and get home. Well, it's going to be an absolute just downpour on Thursday. So I know they're going to move practice inside, which they ended up announcing on Wednesday, so we can't watch it. Everybody's talking about getting the hell out. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to get the hell out too. So I changed my flight to like 11 o'clock in the morning instead of 7 o'clock at night. Well, then Delta is not allowing me to like check in. So I got to call Delta. I'm on the phone for 2 hours, wasting my night on Wednesday night when I could be out meeting with people. And the guy's like, I don't know, man. Just go to the airport. I'm sure it'll work out. Like, thanks. It's great. Thanks for that advice. Get to the airport. To his credit, it did work out. It was fine. Get on the flight. The weather's kind of crappy. Like, all right, it's just rain, though. It's not that big of a deal. Get to Atlanta. We're delayed 4 hours because you can't get the plane is sitting at the gate. It's cleaned. It's ready to go. But the flight crew can't get there because they can't land their plane in Atlanta. They're waiting to land this plane. So then I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the weather, and there's like an ice band from Dallas to New York, just all the way across the country. We finally board this plane. We get in there. And by the way, kudos to Delta for a couple safe flights that day. I appreciate it. We get in there. The pilot, to this person's undying credit with honesty, just goes, listen, we're not serving drinks. We're not serving food because it's going to be a rough ride, and the flight crew is going to be strapped in. So it's going to be a rough one. Settle in. See you on the ground in 90 minutes. Like, okay. And it lived up to expectation. We were banging around pretty good on that bad boy, especially on the ascent. Once we got up top, it wasn't too bad. Coming down, it was a little bumpy, not as bad as going up. But at one point, one of the stewardesses got up to like collect whatever garbage there might have been, and we hit turbulence, and she just went flying across the aisle. And I'm like, get me on the fucking ground. I don't care. Like, whatever it takes. And so I got to fly to LA on Thursday. I'll fly back Monday. Then I'm taking 4 days off to recuperate emotionally and mentally. And I'll tell you, I'm driving to Indy for the combine, and I'm not getting on another plane. If we go to Kansas City a few times this year for like Arrowhead Attic stuff, my ass is driving. I'll drive the 8 hours. I don't care. Like I want to be on the ground.
The new John Madden. It's the new Madden. Verta Madden.
I don't even like. I honestly, it's not even like I'm not one of these people who gets anxious when I'm on the plane. Like normally, I honestly, I don't mind like being. It's getting to the airport, parking at the damn airport. It's the whole bullshit ass like the process. Then you get delayed. And you got to deal with anti-vax lady who's like, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm gonna scream at her for 10 minutes to put her face mask on. And then it's just all of it. You're jammed in. I'm 6'2", 220. I'm not built for an airplane. Like, I'm not paying for extra leg room, even though I probably should at this point. Like, you're just jammed in. You're next to the person who doesn't understand armrest protocol, right? Like, they just wail some peanuts at you. Like, here you go. Like, that makes it all better as you're banging around at 30,000 feet.
Easygoing is not words that describe you. So I think this is
airport food. It sucks. Like, just
you're crazy. The airport food has gone to such a higher level.
Terrible food.
Oh, it's expensive, but I find it to be quite delicious.
I got a euro, however the hell you pronounce it, depending on where you are in the country. I got one in Atlanta. It was $14. I watched them make it. It was literally a pita with 2 slices of lamb meat. 2 slices. They were just like, yeah, that's it. We're done. I was like, what, are you kidding me? Like, I lost my mind. It's like $14 for this thing? It's a fucking pita. Well, like, what the hell's happening? Oh, it's a disgrace.
Well, this wasn't a newsflash, buddy. Plan ahead. Make a sandwich.
I'm still pissed.
Oh, all right. Heist put in the chat the Matten Cruiser. I'm actually thinking about taking some time myself, and I was like, should I? Because I was going to go out to California for the old Super Bowl, but it's not happening. But I was like, should I ride the Amtrak out there? Just because I've always wanted to do that. And
from Chicago to Los Angeles, you want to go full on
40
Amtrak?
hours, buddy. 40 hours. Just when you get on the rail and you do something.
I don't hate the flights that much.
Well, yeah, but you don't have to think literally about anything. You're just relaxing. You're in the observatory car. You're looking at the mountains going through the Rockies. You're having a cocktail. You're reading a book. You're listening to a podcast. Life just stops when you're on that train. There is nothing to do for the next 40 hours to just sit your ass on that train, which is what I want.
All right, so you make a compelling point, like. If you flew to Denver, all right, and then you decided to take the train, then you get some scenery.
Well, you don't want to go through Nebraska?
Carver, you got to go probably like down through St. Louis, down to Kansas City. You're gonna get a whole lot of for hours.
No, I've looked at the routes. You go. That's not the way you go. That's one way you could go, but that's the long route.
Look out the window, kids.
It's already
a
long route.
Yeah, but. Okay, but I've always loved trains, and I just think it'd be fun, and maybe I could do some TikToks and whatever else I could do on there. I think I would love it. I don't think it would bother me in the slightest.
You guys
over under 35 minutes into that train ride, Carm gets on Twitter, ask me anything. I got 39 and a half more hours to go.
Way under. The train might not pull out a station. Like that.
First stop is Naperville, baby. Naperville, Illinois. Let's go.
That's one of those things that sounds like a great idea until you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, and you've now debated whether or not what's more painful, the rest of this trip or throwing my face under the rails. Like what? I mean, like I always think occasionally, because I always want a lake house, right? That's my thing, and like it's like my ultimate dream to have a lake house to like retire to or whatever. And I think to myself, like, man, it'd be cool, like getting a lake house in Montana. And then you actually think about it, and you're like, no, that wouldn't be like that sounds awful because it's like, hey, honey, I'm going to go to the store. I'll be back in 4 hours as I drive forever to get to a store. Like, all that crap sounds fine and well until it's in practice. And you're like, I had to gas the car up 3 times to get milk.
What are you? No. You're like in 1942. There's stores everywhere around lake houses now. The whole world is living around a lake house. By the way, I want to shout out.
He's not wrong. I went to a wedding outside in Montana. It was a good camp friend's wedding, It was about like maybe a 2-hour drive away from where we flew in Missoula. And obviously just it's gorgeous. You're right on this lake. You see the mountains. It's like it was a perfect setup for this wedding. But yeah, if you forgot something, like if you forgot a toothbrush and the little general store
I mean, brushing your
20
teeth.
minutes away is closed, you are royally screwed. And yes, you are gassing up and then gassing back on the way just to get a toothbrush.
Just dial up Amazon. It'll be there in 10 minutes. I want to shout
They're
out.
gonna airdrop it.
Yes, they will. There'll be some drone that's going to show up at your doorstep. I want to shout out Lucas S., who's had a ton of chats today. And his last one, our passenger trains are nightmares because freight trains own the majority of the railways in the U.S., so passengers trains are almost always late.
Dropping knowledge.
I mean, the dude's dropping knowledge on that. He's talking about Sam Howell's, reminding him of Russell Wilson. He had a million other cases.
Poor man's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, a very poor. I mean, the dude has been. And now he's talking about fun fact: the only natural fears for humans are falling and loud noises. The range of Lucas, I see you, buddy. You don't
really have him bring him on. Get me out of here.
Look at that avatar too. Just rooting for nothing but champions. Tampa Bay Lightning, Kansas City Chiefs.
I didn't even pull out the Lightning. Well done.
By the way, we can, I guess, wrap now since we've gone fully off the rails, or maybe we're on the rails now at this juncture. Do either one of you watch that show 1883?
No,
I have not.
Okay, it's like a prequel to Yellowstone. If either one of you have watched that, which I have not watched Yellowstone, but I got into 1883. It is actually it's a very good show. It's interesting. It's on Paramount Plus. I think it's worth a watch. But the whole show is based off of like this wagon train from Texas to Oregon. And as someone who loves history and knows that the railroad, the Intercontinental Railroad was built in like the 1870s or finished in the 1870s, I have a lot of questions. Like, who the hell was taking a wagon train at this point? I'm sure it happened, right? But I'd love to people were still riding the damn wagon train. I guess if you just had no money, then maybe. But even then, like, you needed somebody to lead you out there for the most part. This
is a conversation you should have with Maisie and your wife. You lost me at wagon train. I don't know, Heisler. Are you with Verderam on this?
No, but I will say that I hope even after football season is done that I can still occasionally come on and bug you guys, because for an hour and 20 minutes in our 10 minutes of Super Bowl conversation, we've gone through some shit together and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
No, I'm with you, and I'll move away from the way. But my
point, at least 12 minutes of Super Bowl talk on this.
You're right. I didn't give you enough credit.
You come on whenever you want, Heisler. But the point remains. I just, the reason I brought that show up is the West was like this unclaimed territory. I still feel like if you go to like Wyoming or Montana or like it is just like people are always like, I just want to get away and get off. You want to get away? You take your ass to Wyoming. You'll get away. I
can't disagree with that. Now that I've been to Montana, I completely agree.
You will get away. Like the East Coast, there's no getting away. It doesn't exist. Even the Midwest to some extent. But you go out west, and it just reminded me of that show. Like there's no, there's the railroad that just goes straight out to the Pacific, and then obviously people have populated the West Coast quite a bit. But that like far Midwest area. Yeah, you got some room to roam, my friend. You want 100 acres? You got 100 acres.
Well, just don't forget when you mentioned Wyoming, that was the home of Josh Allen, baby. So,
from California, from Fireball, but
right.
Yes, went to Wyoming and got it done. Got himself first round pick. All right, we got to get the hell out of here. People are literally, I think, going to come after us.
Red Whip's got you for president. We only took an hour and 20 minutes for that to happen. That somebody would nominate you.
He's not wrong.
Yeah,
I mean, he is wrong, horribly wrong. But I'll take the nomination.
All right, check out the Bet Sided later today if you got the time. Ben and company do a great job over there. Verderam, you do a great job. Carm, I learned something today about rushing yards and quarterbacks, so thank you for that. And enjoy your Super Bowl. We will see you next Tuesday, 11 Central Time. Are you off next Tuesday, Verderam?
Yeah, but I'll probably pop on.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll discuss. We'll see how tired I am come Monday.
Okay, we need you on the show. The show is you are the show, buddy. So at least most of the time. throw you a little compliment. Take the compliment. All right. See you, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't on YouTube, and we will see you next time.